Welcome to the Oli and Danny Podcast. We're your hosts, a husband and wife team with 23 years of marriage, 2 amazing kids, and plenty of stories and wisdom to share. Every day we're here with fresh episodes tackling your letters and emails about love, relationships, and family life. From tough decisions to heartfelt dilemmas, we bring honest advice, relatable stories, and a touch of humor to help you navigate it all. So whether you're on a morning commute, taking a break, or winding down after a long day, tune in for your daily dose of real issues and real solutions. This is the Oli and Danny Podcast, where love, laughter, and life lessons come together. Welcome to the episode.
Welcome to the Oli and Danny Podcast. We have another episode for you guys, another couple in trouble.
We've got a letter here from Jane Smith, and it says, "Dear Oli and Danny, I'm a first-time listener and new to writing and to podcasts, but I find myself in a situation where I could really use your advice. My husband and I are in our early 40s with 3 wonderful kids. Recently, he's been considering a career change to a more lucrative field. While I understand that this move could benefit our family's financial future, I'm concerned about the immediate implications. During his transition, I would need to shoulder the financial responsibilities on a limited budget, which feels daunting. We've discussed this at length, and while I want to support his aspirations, I'm struggling with the potential strain on our current finances and the added pressure it may place on me. How can we navigate this period effectively to ensure both our family's stability and his career goals are met? Thank you for your guidance."
This is a common scenario, but sometimes a very difficult one to address. I would start with the emotional side of things. This has to be difficult for both of you, not just for you, but also for him. So there has to be a degree of acknowledgement that he is also going to go through a transition as well. And that means that you both have to have a degree of empathy for what you're about to undertake. So from my perspective, I would say don't focus so much on the responsibility that you have to take on. Focus on what the future looks like if you both achieve your goals. So that will be a first step for me, is to address this emotionally and see where both of you are. And then you'd come into the next side of things, which from my perspective will be the financial side of things. You may have to look at budgets and see what it is you can afford to perhaps cut back on, where extra money can be made, for example. You might have to start to look at that. So by initially thinking about budgeting, so a degree of financial planning, it should make the process a little bit less daunting. Maybe you might feel a little less anxious, but that is definitely something you're going to have to consider, is you're going to have to keep the budget down. So if it's not something that you've discussed, now will be a good time for you to do that.
That's an absolutely crucial point. Obviously, at this point, you are going to be feeling nervous, anxious, unsure about what the future looks like. Quite possibly, if his job was quite stable before, even if the income wasn't a huge amount, having the stability of that income coming in would have created a sense of security, and you knew where you were going from a month-to-month basis with that. Now, not having that is going to create some instability, but as Dad just said, it's going to be for both of you, not just you. You know, getting to the point where you look at yourself in your 40s and admit that what you've been doing hasn't been working, isn't working, is not going to work for the future is quite a big deal, you know, and I'm sure it wasn't an easy decision for him to decide that I'm going to make a change, and change is hard. So your support is going to be required there. So I'd suggest that you guys sit down together and work out a few things. The first thing is to set a clear timeline on what this change looks like. So is he going to go straight into looking for another job, or is he going to have to undertake a period of study or some training? Maybe if he's going into a different industry, work out what that looks like, work out how long that will take, and work out how much you're going to need in terms of, I don't know whether you guys have savings, but work out how your savings will factor into covering you both for that period, if you have any. If you don't have savings, you're going to have to do it, like Dad said, on your current budget, which will be tough. Acknowledge that it will be tough, but also acknowledge that you are in it together and you're doing something together for the greater good. The second thing is that if it is the case that he will be undertaking some training or study in order to facilitate this change, try to figure out whether it might be possible to maybe take on some part-time work. It may be possible for him to take on some part-time work so as to, to create a little bit of a buffer, or maybe he has something that he's interested in doing, a hobby of some kind that he might be able to turn into a side hustle. Explore all your options financially, but also bear in mind that whatever you're doing, you're in this together, and in the long run, the benefit that he is seeking to get from changing careers is going to be a benefit for the whole family.
I absolutely agree. Mum is quite on point. My next thing is seek some kind of professional help if you can afford to do that. Maybe someone like a financial advisor that might take a look at all of your savings, your expenditure, income, and then give you a plan that you can follow. Because sometimes it can be really difficult, especially if there hasn't been the financial discipline prior to fall back on. So I would definitely say that could be an option if you can afford to do it.
I think my last point would be to engage in some open communication with your support network, so your friends and family. And I say this because even though it may not seem as though this has anything to do with your extended family or your friend group, you are going to find that when you're scaling down your budget, you may not be able to go out for the girls' night out that you may have gone on occasionally with your girlfriends. He may not be able to go down to the pub as regularly for a drink with his mates as he did before. These are things that you're probably going to have to mention to your circle, to your support network, so that they know you're going through this change as a couple. What that eliminates is possible arguments in the future. Because if he comes home one night when you guys are in the middle of this effort and says, actually, Jim's invited me out down to the pub and I'm gonna go have a few drinks, you might then say to him, but we don't have the budget for that. And it might create an unnecessary argument that could have been avoided if you had made it clear to your support circle that we're going to be going through a bit of a tough time. This is something we're planning ahead for. So we won't be able to engage in drinks down the pub, dinners and girls' nights out. That will make it clear to your circle that if they are going to be inviting you to these things, one, it shouldn't be too regularly, and two, they might have to tip in with supporting you if they want you to come on these things. Often that's the thing that's overlooked and can cause a lot of friction if it's not thought about and addressed early on. So that would be my last point. Let your support circle know that you're going through a change. You won't have the disposable income to engage in the activities that you probably usually would be able to.
Awesome stuff. Well, that's all we have for you today. Don't forget to follow the podcast right here on TikTok, or we have episodes available on Substack, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. Till the next episode, adios.
Ciao. We'll see you in the next